Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to NRRL's 100% Sunday division. This is Season 1, Round 7. Welcome to the Bahrain Grand Prix. And from me, I am back. I am your commentator, JP. It is a pleasure to be here as always. And after not being here for 9 days, it is an absolute pleasure to be back in the commentary booth with you guys tonight, to be here to witness the Bahrain Grand Prix here in NRRL. Bahrain, always a great circuit for racing, for overtaking, wheel-to-wheel action. We've had Bahrain Grand Prix in NRRL before, but obviously for this division, it is the first time these drivers will set out for laps. We have an 18-minute qualifying, followed by a 100% race, which I believe is 57 laps, if I am not mistaken. We've got a couple drivers coming out early, including the likes of Ryan Brooks, Gavboy, Stoker, Michaela, Anarchy, and Paul Codd. And finally, we are back. I must admit, I've missed it, and I've missed you guys. So if you are in the chat, drop some messages, and we will be replying to those all night long. But as the drivers now set out, I believe we have, is that a Williams? That is. So I believe Ryan Brooks is going to be the first man to set a lap, unless he gets out of the way for the Hass of Anarchy. But it looks like Anarchy is slowing down. So we will see the Williams be the first man to take to the track, the Bahrain International Circuit, and deem himself, you would assume, on provisional pole, unless of something untoward like a crash or an invalidation or anything like that. So as he now rounds the final corner to go on to his lap, here we go then. We'll ride on board into turn 1, draining a hell of a lot of the battery into turn 1 is Ryan. Pick your braking point. Very easy to go deep here. Goes very deep. Just misses the apex. Hits the apex of turn 2 quite nicely though. And now the DRS opens once again, using as much of the track as possible to try and gain those crucial milliseconds. Through the first sector he comes towards the sector 1 split now. What time are we seeing from Ryan? It's a 28.4. Obviously purple. He is the first man to set a flying lap, and we will continue watching the Williams driver now. And I will remind you quickly that this is a realistic performance tier. This is not equal cars, so Ryan in the Williams you would assume will be towards the back of the grid. However, we put the faster drivers in the slower cars to try and balance it out, so we will have to see what happens. We know that the likes of Michaela, Sab, Ryan tend to be up there. People like Gavboy as well. Dan Lovett, who is Ryan Brooks' teammate, he is also up there relatively often. So it'll be interesting to see how everybody fares now. Using the last of his battery now is Ryan Brooks as he comes towards the final corner. It's almost like 2 corners in one this, but he rides it very nicely all the way to the exit curb. Will go to provisional pole because he is the first man to set a lap. It's a 1:28.7. We believe Anarchy will be second out there. Oh, it'd be Paul Codd. Paul Codd on the mediums does a 32.3. Can Anarchy challenge the Williams? He cannot. He goes into second with a 1:30.0. Gavboy goes into second now with a 1:29.9. Very close between the pair of them. We've now got a couple more cars out on track. We've got Beatty, who is on his outlap. We've got Stoker, who puts in a 36.1. You would imagine he can go quicker in the McLaren. 14 drivers here with us tonight, looking to vie for a Grand Prix victory. Michaela goes P4, about a 10th off of Anarchy. He will most certainly be looking to go quicker. I Have No Grip now coming towards the line and slots in behind his teammate, a 1:30.6. We now look to Dan Lovett, who goes second behind his teammate with a 1:29.6. So that 28.7 looking very good from Ryan Brooks at the minute. If I'm honest, I don't really know what the lap times are supposed to be around here. I'm currently out of league racing, so I can't really tell you what the lap times are like. But a 28.7 is obviously good, as we've got Sab, who splits the 2 Williams with a 29.4. and goes into second place. We've got Bracey, who I don't believe I've commentated over before. He is currently on a lap in the V-Carb. Obviously a great podium today for Isaac Hadjar in the Dutch Grand Prix, obviously in real life. Great stuff from the young Frenchman, only 21 years of age, same age as me. And I'm sat here commentating F1 while he's grabbing podiums. But congratulations to Isaac, incredible stuff out there today. An absolute pleasure and a joy to watch is Isaac. Meldrum is also on a lap, has shown a very quick turn of speed in qualifying. Obviously in the McLaren, the quickest car, you would imagine he will be up there. Normally one of the slower drivers, hence being in the McLaren. Obviously no offence to Meldrum, I'm sure he won't mind me saying that. But he has shown a real turn of pace in qualifying, took back-to-back pole positions in Australia and I believe in Hungary. Or, no, now that I say that it sounds wrong, but he took back-to-back pole positions. It was first at Australia and then the track after that. Meldrum comes to the line, slots it into P4 with a 29.7. We now look to CRBT, who is on his lap. He is the only man currently on a flying lap, I do believe. Everyone else coming into the pits. So we ride on board with the Alpine. Then a bit snappy out the final corner. A lot of battery to use. I do wonder, yes, as he only does a 36.7, he must have, well, he didn't invalidate, so he must have made a mistake somewhere and is now vying to go again. Meets the apex very nicely in turn 1. Skips over the curb of turn 2. And out of turn 3 now. DRS wide open on that pink and blue liveried Alpine. He now makes his way into turn 4. Rotation looks nice. Little bit choppy on the rear end, but it doesn't look horrible. He is a 10th up, or, well, nearly 2 tenths up on the current provisional pole lap, I believe that is. So BT is working well with that Alpine. His teammate currently second. It is looking like a Williams-Alpine fight so far under the lights here in Bahrain, especially in qualifying, that is for sure, as he runs very wide there. I believe that was a big snap on the exit curb. That did not look like a stable ride through Sector 2, and he used a lot of battery to try and regain that time. Running it very wide here, past the curb of death, or, well, what used to be the curb of death on older F1 games. He's 7 seconds up on his own lap, sorry. So this is a good lap for CRBT. He now plunges downhill towards the final corner. Meets the apex very nicely. Rotation on the front end working very well for that Alpine. Rear end looking a little bit unstable, but it doesn't look like anything BT doesn't mind. And he does go to P2. Beats his teammate, a 29.0. Ryan Brooks may have a challenger, and he now cuts the track to try and get back to the pits as quick as possible to set as many laps as he can. Ryan is on an out lap now and will be looking to try and gain away his advantage from BT and Sab, who currently split the two Williams drivers. Bracey is currently on a lap in V-Carb's challenger, currently P6. He is looking to make an improvement on that, burning a hell of a lot of battery. You can see Roscoe, Lewis Hamilton's dog, on his helmet. So he now comes through the final corner. We know the V-Carbs were flying today in the Dutch Grand Prix. How do they fare under the lights here in Bahrain? He does improve with a 29.7. Not far off of Dan Lovett. Just about beats out Meldrum. All very, very close here. And we now have Gavboy, who's on a lap, who is, I believe, 3 tenths up through the first sector. So he is definitely looking to improve a couple of positions. Maybe even snatch away P4 from Dan Lovett, who is currently in the pits. The hardest braking zone, one of the hardest braking zones on the calendar is that, but he's going to get a nice little tow here from one of the Aston Martins. The Aston now moves out of the way, and Gavboy got a lovely tow there from the Aston Martin. I believe that was Mr. J. So Gav will most certainly be thanking him, because that was a lovely tow, and he's about a second up, is Gavboy. And a lap like this, if he keeps improving like this, would most certainly take him towards the top of the timesheets. The Red Bull driver absolutely flying into the final corner we come now then. Meets the apex beautifully. Does Gavboy. Deploys what overtake he has left. He's ran out of battery towards the line. Comes to the line now. Goes P3 with a 29.2. Great lap from the Red Bull driver. He will most certainly be proud of that one. Ryan Brooks has invalidated his lap, so he will have to go again if he fancies those tyres. Michela is also currently on a lap, a tenth and a half up on his personal best. That would see him improve position, but not by much. Obviously, in the Kick Sauber, the slowest car on the game, so you wouldn't expect him to be towards the top of the timesheets. We know Williams is probably a bit of a midfield team. Michela does improve with the 29.7. Goes up into P8. Paul Codd is currently on a lap. I believe his best lap was set on the medium tyres, so you would have to assume that he will improve. Ryan Brooks is going to go for another lap on those tyres. Has charged up the battery very nicely and will now deploy the overtake all the way down the main straight. The man currently sat on provisional pole, but he does have challengers. Josh is currently in the pits. Mr. Jabe and Sean, the two men to have not set laps yet. And was that Gavboy maybe repaying the favour to Mr. Jabe and giving him a tow as well? I believe that was the Red Bull driver. Obviously, the lone Red Bull tonight is Gavboy. So maybe they're just, you know, having some little friendly games out there, giving each other a tow. But like I say, we've got Sean and Mr. J both having not set laps yet. Sean will be the first to change that. Goes from 14th up to 13th. Not a great lap there, a 147.7. Mr. Jabe goes into 11th with a 31.1. So Sean presumably making a mistake on that lap or aborting it. He is on another lap now on board with the V-Carb we are. Liam Lawson's helmet being sported in that cockpit, and towards Sector 1 now, you would have to assume he'll be about 10 seconds up through this first sector, a 1 minute 47, and he is 13 seconds up on his first sector. Josh now the only man to have not come out onto the track. Ryan Brooks invalidated again, I believe, so not ideal for the Williams driver, although he is sitting pretty in P1 currently. BT, though, is on his outlap and looking to improve. And while the session just settled down a little bit, I would like to drop a cheeky little plug for the NRRL Super League beginning on Wednesdays. This is an event that I believe personally will skyrocket this league. It is the best drivers from the league racing scene that we can find, and the best drivers in this league all vying for one championship. Now, there are a few different rules for the Super League that I will quickly get onto. So drivers will score points in their respective tier, points from 1st to 10th in their tier, so everybody will score points. If a Tier 1 driver finishes outside of the top 10, they will score their tier points, but then be deducted 5 points for finishing outside of the top 10. Whereas Tier 2 drivers, if they finish in the top 10, they will score their tier points and an extra 5 points. So obviously 2 tiers split up into 1 league, and there's that different bit of competition, something that I've personally never seen in any racing league ever. And I mean, I've been doing this about 8 years now. So quite an interesting format that the guys at NRRL are trying, but you know, you don't know how it's going to work until you try it. It might fail miserably. It might be absolutely brilliant. You just do not know. So make sure on Wednesdays you are tuning in. We've got 6 days of racing action coming to you this week. Rumours are the Wednesday Super League is going to start on the 10th of September. But this week, we've got all days of racing covered besides Wednesdays. So make sure you hit the follow button if you're interested. CRBT now to the line and is just a couple of milliseconds off of Ryan Brooks. A 128.748 for BT, a 128.723 for Ryan Brooks. So they are very, very close. Dan Lovett comes into the pits as he invalidated his lap. Bracey again improved by a 10th, I believe. We've got Sean who invalidated his lap. I Have No Grip is also harvesting that battery up nicely. But these probably will be the final runs, and BT is going to really have to get a move on. As you can see, he really is. He's going to have to get a move on if he wants to try and set another lap and try and beat the man at the front, Ryan Brooks. It all settles down a bit now then, and the drivers on their laps. I believe the only man on a lap at the minute is Bracey. So we will look to the V-Carb driver now then and see what he has in his locker as he now comes towards the end of the DRS zone. It slams shut as he slams on the brakes through the long right-hander and now the long left-hander. It's just so long, this corner. You're constantly turning, wondering, when can I get the loud pedal down? He's a 10th.5 up, which would take him ahead of Dan Lovett. He needs another couple tenths in this final sector to try and get himself onto the second row and beat Sab. But as things stand, this would be a good enough lap to beat Dan Lovett, who is now on his outlap. So Dan Lovett will have a chance to respond. Bracey comes to the line, does go P4. Incredible improvement in the final sector from the VCARB driver. And we saw Isaac Hadjar qualify P4 for the Dutch Grand Prix. Will we see Bracey qualify P4 for the Bahrain Grand Prix? VCARB working absolutely wonderfully. We've now got Sab, who is on his lap, so he will try and reply to Bracey. Ryan Brooks is also on a lap. Who is further around the lap? It is Ryan Brooks, so we will go on board. No, he's backed out of it, has Ryan. He was obviously down on that lap, and we'll look to recharge the battery. So now we ride on board with Sab Gaming, looking to improve. He was provisionally P4, has been demoted by Bracey, but now the Alpine driver gets the chance to send his reply. He comes to the end of Sector 2, and he's a 10th.5 up. That would potentially take him to P3 ahead of Gavboy. Ryan Brooks will obviously set another lap. Bracey will try and do another one. But Sab in the Alpine, while his teammate vies for pole position, although I doubt he will get another lap, he's in the pits, is CRBT. Sab now comes to the line, does improve up to third. A 1:29.1 from Sab Gaming. That is a good lap from the Alpine driver, makes it provisionally an Alpine 2-3. Ryan Brooks sets off on his final flying lap, as does Gavboy, to now try and reply to Sab Gaming. Dan Lovett is also now just going on to his final flying lap. Meldrum has invalidated his final lap. McKellar is on his lap as well. So all these drivers are vying for position. Ryan Brooks looks clear out in front and is again over a 10th.5 up. So he is absolutely flying, is the Williams man. Gavboy, what does he do as he comes towards the end of Sector 1? I believe he was just a few milliseconds down as Ryan Brooks now comes and is very deep into that braking zone. I would imagine that would have lost him time, but he will continue with this lap because there are predators behind. Sab won't get another lap because qualifying is now finished. BT, I Have No Grip, and Stoker are all done. Josh, who has not set a lap thus far, we know can be quick, is now coming to the line. Turns the ERS on. Where can Josh go? He goes up to P6, a 29.5 for the Aston Martin driver. Now what of Ryan Brooks? He was 3 tenths down through the middle sector split. He is so far on pole position and he's ran out of fuel, has Ryan Brooks. So he will not set a better lap. Sab won't set a better lap. Gavboy must have made some sort of mistake somewhere. He will not get another one. Now over to Bracey and Dan Lovett. Dan Lovett now comes to the line and Dan Lovett goes up to P6. Demotes Josh to P7. McKellar's done. He's in 8th. We've now got Sean, Mr. Jabe and Bracey to set times. And Sean, with a mega lap, goes to P3. I wasn't even watching him, but the VCARB driver demotes Sab and Gavboy. I think he was sat in 9th, was Sean. Goes up to P3. One of his teammate Bracey can't improve. Over to Mr. Jabe to set the final lap of the session. Stays 13th. Late drama in this session. Incredible lap from Sean to go third. Ryan Brooks is on pole for the Bahrain Grand Prix. Absolutely incredible stuff. The Williams man absolutely flying in qualifying and a great lap to take pole position by 25 milliseconds. Sean will line up in third. A great lap from the VCARB man. Sab will be in 4th with Gavboy in 5th and Bracey in 6th. Dan Lovett in 7th. Josh in 8th. McKellar 9th and Meldrum in 10th. Will round off your top 10. We then have Anarchy, I Have No Grip, Mr. Jabe, Paul Codd and Stoker from 11th to 15th respectfully. And that is your order then for the Bahrain Grand Prix. I believe it is 57 laps ahead of us for this race. Wow. What a session that we have just witnessed. Now, we have a 5-minute break. And normally, if you are used to watching the streams, the 5-minute breaks with me, admittedly, pretty boring. I normally just tend to waffle about some sort of random crap and whatever. However, today, we have the drivers and constructors standings. So as you can see on your screen, ladies and gentlemen, Sab is the current championship leader, followed by BT. It is an Alpine 1-2 in the drivers championship, which obviously means they lead the constructors. It is a 64-point deficit that Williams have to Alpine. We then have the Alpines who are leading the drivers from Dan Lovett, who has had 2 DNFs this season, but his results mean that he is in third. Jim Strav, who I don't believe is racing tonight, is in fourth from Mr. Jabe. We then have Meldrum, Gavboy Sean, RJ Batten, who round off the top 10. In the constructors, Alpine and Williams vying it out. Aston Martin and Sauber very, very close behind. Ferrari and Racing Bulls are on equal points with McLaren in behind as well. It is very, very close between all of the teams in the Constructors' Championship. As you can see, the gap to the leader from the team at the bottom, who have only scored in 2 events, is only 133 points, which sounds like a lot, but isn't the most. So there are your championship standings then, ladies and gentlemen. What do we make of that? Incredible stuff. And we will now, I believe, return to the lobby as I think we have a lobby restart. So I will keep those standings on the screen for just a second, just to sort of let you guys know what's happening. So someone readied up, so we are restarting. That's not a problem. So it just gives us a bit more time to go over the standings. You know, we've got people like McKellar, who didn't score in the first 4 races and then has scored back-to-back in the Brazil and I believe that was Monza races. We've got Sab Gaming, who has retired once. One out in Spain, was second in Qatar in the season opener. Fourth, I believe that is, in both Monza and in Brazil. So interesting stuff in the standings, all still very close. 10 points between the 2 Alpine teammates. And while Connor starts second, I believe Sab was 5th. So that's going to be interesting to see how that pans out. We've then got Dan Lovett, who is really pulling the weight of Williams, currently in 3rd. He's 17 points behind. You would have to imagine the sort of 3 for the championship is going to be Sab, Connor and Dan. Just looking in the standings though, I don't see Ryan Brooks anywhere, which is interesting. So we'll have to see what's going on with that. I'll see if I can get any information regarding that. But for now, there is no Ryan Brooks. You know, you would put your money on someone like Ryan Brooks, but with tonight's round and then next week's round being the final race of the season, Ryan isn't really going to stand a chance here. So this is, this is the back end of this championship. We've got tonight's Grand Prix, the Bahrain Grand Prix. Then we head to America for the season finale. It is all very interesting. We'll bring you back to the live screen then, ladies and gentlemen, as we await an invite from the leaders. Get ourselves back in the session. And I'm just going to try and find out where in America we are headed for the final Grand Prix. It is Miami. So the first time that I've ever personally seen Miami play host to the finale of a league racing season. But should be interesting nonetheless. Obviously we went to Qatar for round 1, then to Spain and Australia. Then we had Hungary and Imola. Brazil, tonight Bahrain. Next week will be Miami. Now, I don't believe Or well, yeah, the championship surely can be decided tonight if Sab outscores Connor by 16 points or more. I believe he will win the championship. Don't hold me to that, because I'm not 100%, but I believe that's how the championship can be won. So I will quickly try and get some information and see if I can figure that out. Bear with me 2 moments, and we'll see what happens. Right, I've just posed a question, so we will wait and see and hope that we can try and get an answer for that, because obviously if the championship is won tonight and I miss it, I'm going to be heartbroken. And, you know, I as a commentator myself, I like giving people those moments of, you know, they cross the line and I'm giving them their moment of being world champion and announcing them as the world champion. And, you know, they can go on and post that on TikTok or YouTube or Instagram. I like creating those moments. I feel that's my job as a commentator, not just to bring you all the action, but to create moments. So when something big like that happens, like with the race win or pole position, especially winning a world championship, 110%, I would like to give them that moment. So we will hope that we can find out mathematically how it would be possible for the championship to be won tonight. And we shall see. So like I say, and like you guys have seen about 5 minutes ago, the standings are as follow. So Sab Gaming currently leads the championship by 10 points to Connor. We then have Dan Lovett, who is 17 points behind. So it's going to be interesting to see how that is won, because I know that NRRL uses a different point system. They don't use the real F1 point system. So I need to try and figure out, if I can find the race results, who's scored what points. So you get 25 for winning. That's completely normal. You get 20 for being second, and you get 18 for being third. So, by that logic, if Sab is to win, he'd need 25 points difference. So, let me just check the race results, and I should be able to figure this out. I'm relatively sure if Sab wins and Connor fails to finish, I believe, 4th or above, it would seem. Yeah. So if Sab wins the race and Connor fails to finish above 4th, Sab will win the Drivers' World Championship. Big ask for Sab, being that Ryan Brooks is on pole, and in, I believe, all of the races Formula 1-wise that I've commentated of Ryan Brooks, he's won. It's going to be very hard to see Ryan not winning that one. Otherwise, I don't believe it's mathematically possible unless Sab finishes second and then there's some sort of DNF for Connor. I do apologise for my absolutely terrible maths. I did fail maths at school. Please cut me some slack. We will just have to sort of hold in the wings and see. But this is a good time for me to plug. If I do miss it, go and follow us on TikTok, on Instagram, and subscribe on YouTube, because that is where you will see the updates. If I, God forbid, miss someone winning the championship, there is no doubt you will hear about it on the TikTok. McKellar is the man that runs the TikTok, and might I say, he's probably quite smarter than me. So if I do end up missing it, head over to the TikTok I'm sure you will see it there. Make sure you're following, so if anything untoward happens after the Grand Prix, you will know about it. If you follow on YouTube, or subscribe on YouTube, sorry, you will get the race highlights. The entire stream will be uploaded to YouTube, so you can go and watch back your favourite moments. Also, every 3 or 4 weeks, or if it's an especially good race in our eyes, we do make a condensed sort of 15-minute highlight video of the Grand Prix. Like a real F1, like a Sky Sports F1 extended highlights video for the real F1 Grand Prix. So, hopefully, if tonight is an incredible race, you might see one of those videos as well. BT says, me versus Sab, Lewis versus Nico all over again. Exactly that, mate. The Alpine inter-team rivalry. But you have got Dan Lovett on your arse. So I would be careful. Because if you two come to blows, Dan Lovett's going to be all over it. So you've got to be careful and play the team game. But at the same time, you've got to fight for yourself. You've got to be selfish in the championship fight. With only 2 rounds to go, including tonight, it is going to get spicy, that is for sure, as everyone jockeys for championship positions. We should be going any minute now. I believe we've got everyone in. I do believe once we are in, we'll have a couple-minute break, just so everyone can get the setups on and the tyres on and whatnot. But besides that, should be all good to go. 57 laps, there you go, confirmed for you, of the Bahrain Grand Prix lie ahead of us. And I must say, I do really like Bahrain. Bahrain is just one of those circuits that I do enjoy commentating at. You know, there's lots of room for overtakes, wheel-to-wheel action. The track is very wide, so you can have 2 abreast, 3 abreast, sometimes even 4 abreast, especially if you're talking into Turn 1. Turn 1, a great overtaking opportunity, especially lap 1, Turn 1. Incredible stuff as you see cars jockeying for position into such a tight hairpin and then straight into a left-hander. It's a great overtaking opportunity, and it's never just done at Turn 1. So we will have to see what happens. Could go down to the wire, this championship decider, possibly next week, but absolutely anything can happen now, as we all know. Exactly that, mate. That is the thing about NRRL. It's absolutely chaotic. You just don't know what's going to happen. If I had to place my bets, and admittedly, I am a betting man, it would go to next week. But there is the chance that it can be won tonight. So we've got to make people aware of that. Do you know what I mean? Because it can be won. Don't get me wrong, it's very unlikely. You're probably talking Sab has to come from, I think it's 5th or 6th on the grid, win the Grand Prix, and BT, you've got to DNF. But because it's a possibility, it's better to let the viewers know and better to say, right, this can potentially happen. So then if it does happen, it's not a big shock, you know, halfway through the race, oh my God, Sab's on course to win the championship. So we will see, but best of luck to you, BT. Appreciate you being in the chat, mate. Best of luck to you. Starting from 2nd place, front row of the grid, and a clear view ahead of him, besides Ryan Brooks, who will obviously be on the other side of the grid. Is the Constructors secured? And yes, 100% agreed. I don't believe the Constructors is secured. Let me just take a quick look for you. So obviously the maximum points that can be scored is, what, 45 in a weekend? 2 weekends left. That makes 90. The difference between yourself and Williams, Alpine and Williams, is 64. So you can secure it today, granted that Williams don't outscore you, essentially. So, should go well. Appreciate you, BT. Thank you very much, mate. And again, best of luck to you. But no, championship not secured, but could be secured tonight if Alpine outscore Williams. So that is a big point. And thank you for reminding me, BT, because I was so focused on the drivers, I did not think once about the constructors. But 45 points being the maximum you can score in NRRL as a team on a weekend, or at an event, shall we say. Leading the championship by, what did I say, 64 points? Yes, 64 points. So if you outscore Williams, which is going to be difficult because I believe Ryan Brooks is in the Williams, Dan Lovett's in the Williams. But even if, you know, you don't lose 20 odd points to Williams, you are Constructors World Champions. So best of luck, obviously, to everyone out on the grid, but best of luck to Williams and Alpine in their Constructors' Championship fight. I do believe it would be a bit difficult for Williams to try and overcome that deficit, but I have seen stranger things. So we will see what happens tonight under the lights here at the Bahrain International Circuit. I must say, I'm happy to be back. 9 days off of the commentary, 9 days away from the racing action. I'm happy to be back at the circuit, commentating live for all of you at home. And if you are new at home, please don't forget to drop a follow down below. It means the absolute world to us. 6 days of racing action coming to you this week: Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday and Sunday. And starting from the 10th of September, 7 days of racing action with the Wednesday Super League coming to you live only on this Twitch channel. Obviously, like I've mentioned before, subscribe on YouTube. All of the race streams are uploaded to YouTube straight after they are taken from the VODs on Twitch. Normally a day or two after the event concurs, they are uploaded to YouTube. Follow us on TikTok for some best of moments and recruitment and whatnot. So if you are looking to join yourself, definitely follow us on TikTok. Obviously, we're all ran on Discord, so make sure you've got Discord. But if you are looking to get involved in the action, this is the fastest growing league in F1 league racing currently. So make sure you get involved. There's nowhere I'd rather be, and I'm sure, as Jess Glynn would say, there is no place you'd rather be either. As we now await those sacred 5 red lights awaiting the drivers. Ryan Brooks on pole position. And I must say, the standout for me, Sean in P3. But here we go to the grid then. 5 red lights ahead of the drivers, and they weren't held for long. It is lights out, and away we go. And Ryan Brooks does get the dream start and covers off BT into turn 1. Sab is already ahead of Sean, who's had an absolutely horrible start. BT and Sab running in second and third. Dan Lovett up to 4th. Great start from the Williams driver as they try and vie for the Constructors' Championship tonight. Bracey is up into 5th and is wheel-to-wheel with McKellar into turn 4. Very close action between those two guys. The sister car of the Red Bull and the Red Bull itself getting the elbows out, but it's Bracey that wins that fight and gets up into 5th position. But all cars pointing in the right direction. I do believe we've got Stoker, who's lagging a bit towards the back, but nothing major. I don't believe there was any massive contact. I can't see any damage. Meldrum picks up a time penalty for multiple warnings. But Sean, from 3rd position down to 12th, and we haven't even finished the first lap. Down 9 places is the VCARB driver, and I said it on the grid, he was my standout from qualifying. He was the man that I was really, really impressed with. And unfortunately for him, down 9 places from his starting position, and now battling with Paul Codd. BT is really looking to take the fight to Ryan Brooks, and if BT can beat Ryan Brooks in this race tonight, it guarantees that Alpine are Constructors' World Champions. DRS should be enabled on this lap then for the drivers. Ryan Brooks sets the fastest lap of the race, and they are all through cleanly as we finish lap 1 and enter lap 2. The 2 Alpines followed by a Williams. In a Williams sandwich are the Alpines, and surprisingly, Sab on the softs, BT on the mediums. So that will be interesting to see how both of those drivers fare. Maybe some team orders, as BT might say, look, you're on the better tyres, get after Ryan. Or Sab might come knocking on the door and say, BT, hello. Look at the colour of my red-walled softs. Let me get through and try and challenge for the lead. Dan Lovett is in 4th and will be looking to try and take the fight to the Alpines as they try and keep their Constructors' World Championship hopes alive. But Williams are quite far behind, and it would be a struggle for them, and it would be difficult to see them gaining. Lots of battery for Ryan Brooks, barely any battery for CRBT, and a lot of understeer through that turn for the Alpine driver. Struggling with the front end is BT. Obviously very different setups and very different car performance these cars have. It isn't just about genuine pace. It's also about the way the car turns in, the ride height. How well can they take curves? How well can they ride over the bumps? Bahrain is quite the bumpy circuit, especially down the main straight, which we head to now. And with DRS, BT looks to lock his sights on the Williams. Is there enough of a gap? It actually looks like Sab is gaining on his teammate and potentially lining up a move. Nothing opening up for the Alpine driver on his teammate, but Bracey and Dan Lovett are squabbling over 4th place, and Bracey, who is on the soft tyres, Dan Lovett, who is on the mediums, and Bracey in the V-carb, moves himself up to 4th position with the DRS, and that is not what Williams or Dan Lovett will want, because at this current moment, Alpine will be Constructors' World Champions. A long, long way to go in this Grand Prix, but as it stands, Alpine are doing enough, and I'm sure they will have the champagne ready in the garage for when those drivers cross the line. McKellar is up to 6th. Gavboy in 7th. Josh is 8th with Anarchy in 9th. A few battles going on towards the back of the pack. Stoker is really starting to drop off of the train. 5 seconds behind his nearest compatriot. I don't know if I can see damage on that McLaren, and that might be contributing to his lack of pace. I can't see any damage. But I must say, what is really keeping Ryan Brooks ahead here, because they are on the same tyres, Ryan and BT, is the battery. Look at the difference. 40% for Ryan, 10% for BT. So Ryan is able to drain that battery all the way down, and BT is not able to do anything about it. Bracey sets the fastest lap of the Grand Prix. Dan with DRS will look to close in, but Bracey looking to gain on Sab. However, Sab will want to get on with this. He won't want to be in the dirty air of his teammate, but it didn't look like the best exit out of turn 2, and he will have to stay behind his teammate for the time being. Behind, we've then got McKellar and Gavboy, who are very, very close to each other on track, and they are squabbling away with Dan Lovett. The strategy, very, very split here. We've got 5 drivers, who are on the softs, 2 are on the hards, and the rest on mediums. Mr. Jabe comes into the pits. I don't know if there was damage on that Aston Martin. You would have to assume there was, because that's a very peculiar time to take a pit stop. He comes out quite obviously in last place of our 16 runners tonight. DGH, I believe, must have missed qualifying, because I don't remember seeing him in the Mercedes-Benz, currently in 10th position. But out in front, Bracey is trying to reel in the top 3, the 3 podium sitters currently, all slowly beginning to run away with this one. And Dan is just staying in tune with his V-carb compatriot. Again, battery advantage swings to Ryan Brooks, and BT is draining it, but he just doesn't have enough. He didn't get the exit out of the final corner, and nowhere near enough battery to try and gain on the Williams driver. So he will have to revisit the handbook and see again what he will be able to do. Again, burning the overtake all the way down, and he is not close enough, and that is really harming his race. BT just struggling a bit with the battery, using too much in the wrong places, not harvesting enough. And that is giving Ryan Brooks all he needs to just try and control this race. He is most certainly under pressure from both of the Alpines, as they are within that DRS duct. However, again, look, you can see BT there draining a bit of ERS, as Ryan with a little bit of a lock up there. But you can see BT is draining the overtake really when he doesn't need to. In the DRS zones, you're never really going to pull off an overtake around there. And he's basically drained his battery all the way down. And all the while, Ryan is saving his battery up to 60% now, is the Williams driver. Meanwhile, Sab behind him is saving a lot more of his battery, using a bit there on the exit, and Bracey using as much as he can, but he is falling off the back of that sort of podium train. So it is going to be difficult for him to try and regain that time. He is obviously battling away with the likes of Dan Lovett, McKellar and Gavboy, and then we've got a bit more of a gap back to the likes of I Have No Grip and Meldrum. Nothing doing, but BT is getting closer, and a big lock up there for Ryan Brooks. So is BT potentially poised to try and make a move? He is using the overtake. Ryan Brooks is not. However, BT does not look close enough and will have to settle behind the Williams driver for at least another half a lap. Sab Gaming saving a little bit of his battery. It is somewhat more even now in the ERS game. Just need to see BT using that battery a little bit smarter, and then he will most certainly be in with a shout of the victory. But all the while, Ryan Brooks, he knows what he's doing out in the lead of an F1 league race. A little bit of a wiggle there for BT. Lap 6 of 57 here. And Ryan is doing all he can, controlling this Grand Prix. And he is controlling it very, very well. BT, again, just using a little bit of ERS in places he doesn't need. He's only 5/10 behind the Williams driver. Ryan using a little bit of ERS out of there just to try and make the gap a little bit more predominant as we go through the final corner. And this is where I would imagine they will both start burning their batteries. It seems that BT is going to save a bit though this lap, which is quite interesting. Stays within the DRS duct while Ryan not using his battery. So maybe BT is trying to line up a move into turn 4. He didn't get the best of lines through there though. Is going to have battery to play with, but isn't going to use it. And this is smarter from BT. This is a lot smarter, as now we look at Dan Lovett, who is looking to go past the V-carb of Bracey, who got him here a few laps ago. Dan Lovett down the inside does take the position back momentarily, but now as we look back on board with the V-carb, just manages to hold it round the outside and keep the position. Great battle ensuing here in a big, big train. Bracey, Dan Lovett, Gavboy, McKellar, Josh, DGH, Anarchy, all within a few tenths of each other. 4th down to 10th, all fighting, and there was some carbon fibre flying off of one of our Formula 1 cars. It wasn't Bracey, it wasn't Dan Lovett, I don't believe. I'm just trying to see who has the damage. It wasn't the Aston Martin, it was the Mercedes of DGH. Must have gone into the back of Josh there. Very difficult braking zone to try and follow in. And DGH, without a front right end plate, will begin to struggle. Sab Gaming is just falling off the back of his teammate now. Those tyres are starting to wear off. 1.6 seconds. BT and Ryan both about on the same battery again. BT still in that DRS duct, but does have a 3-second penalty, I believe. We will just quickly check that. It is a 3-second penalty for BT. So Ryan with a little bit of a pillow to try, maybe try some different strategy and whatnot. See if he can outsmart BT, obviously, with that penalty. Dan Lovett just not close enough to the back of the V-car. Bracey doing an incredible job on those soft tyres to try and hold behind Dan Lovett. Gavboy and McKellar also on the softs. Josh on the mediums. DGH and Anarchy just falling off that train. And DGH really is holding up Anarchy here. And Anarchy needs to try and go for a move as soon as possible, because he is being held up by the Mercedes driver, and especially in corners like the one coming up here. DGH is going to have to brake so early, and that is only going to hamper the Haas driver. Still a bit of a train going on though. The Mercedes does not get DRS. Anarchy does. And is there room for a move towards the inside? There isn't, so he will have to sit behind. Sean picks up a penalty for multiple track limit warnings. Currently down in 13th place. Running a bit of a lonely race. 4.4 seconds behind Meldrum. And BT just slightly falling a bit off the back of Ryan Brooks when he doesn't have the DRS. The gap now is over a second, but with DRS, you would assume that will come down between BT and Ryan, and BT will stay in that DRS. However, the interesting thing at the minute is, like I mentioned a few laps ago, Alpine are in the place they need to be to try and win the Constructors' World Championship tonight. And BT will be, at this current moment, gaining on his teammate. We've got DGH, who is now being overtaken by Anarchy, but DGH using a hell of a lot of battery, getting back past Anarchy. So that is going to frustrate the Haas driver even more. But like I was saying, BT currently beating his teammate and will be reducing that championship. Obviously, this being the penultimate round of the season, it's going to be interesting to see how these drivers fare. Anarchy finally gets the best of his man DGH in the Mercedes-Benz. However, they are very, very close to each other. So, at the minute, although we do have someone slowing down, and that was Ryan Brooks. And I'm not sure what happened to Ryan Brooks there, but the man that was leading this Grand Prix by about a second to BT has now fallen behind and is into second place. We've got Mr. Jabe, who I believe is round out on the exit of turn 3. He manages to keep the car going. I don't believe there's any damage to that car, although there is a lot of damage to that car. So Mr. Jabe is going to have to drag that back. But the big news, Ryan Brooks, with some sort of a mistake in the middle sector, I presume a spin, although I'm pretty sure he was moving the entire time. So I don't really see what happened there. But CRBT on lap 9 takes the lead of the Bahrain Grand Prix. Ryan Brooks is looking very racy and is already catching back up to BT. But BT now leads. And that would be massive for the championship if BT were able to win this race. He would really bring the points down to Sab and make it a very, very interesting championship finale. Ryan Brooks now picks up a 3-second penalty, and it is level pegging at the front. Sab will be the one who is really happy about this because he is the only leader to not have a penalty thus far. Yellow flag in the middle sector. I don't believe that was for anything major. But Sab will be smiling under that crash helmet because he is the only front runner to not have a time penalty. And like I say, level pegging between BT and Ryan is doing everything he can to try and get back in the DRS of BT, but nothing doing thus far, and he will not get it down the main straight. He will use all the overtake he can, but he doesn't have much. And he is just slowly creeping, into that DRS. It's going to be very, very close, but he isn't going to get it as we meet the detection line there. No. McKellar now comes into the pits. We saw Sean into the pits, as was DGH, onto a fresh set of the mediums and has changed that front wing. Mr. Jabe drags his stricken McLaren back into the pit lane. We've got Bollard on the track in the middle of turn 1. I assume that will be moved. Ryan Brooks has managed now to get in the DRS of BT. That will be helping him along back in his pursuit of the lead of the Grand Prix. Bracey is dropping off of the battle here. Well, I say battle, he's dropping off a Sab, who is still a little bit behind Ryan. Not too far. And if Ryan does make one or two more of those mistakes, you would assume that Sab will be past him. But Bracey doing an incredible job on those softs to try and hold behind the likes of Dan Lovett, Gavboy, Josh, Anarchy. Dan Lovett will be frustrated behind the rear wing of that V-Carb. He knows that he needs to get up there and try and score some more points tonight if he is to keep his team in the Constructors' World Championship fight. Ryan is right up the front, and is BT coming into the pits? No, he's trying to break the toe. You can only move once under the Formula 1 regulations. Ryan is going to the outside, and he lost it due to a mistake a few laps ago, but Ryan does retake the lead of the Bahrain Grand Prix. A big snap there for BT will only help Ryan in his pursuit of staying ahead, but BT is coming back at him to turn 4. Is there enough of a gap to try and go for the under switch? There isn't, and Ryan Brooks does retake the lead of the Bahrain Grand Prix. He lost it on lap 9. He regains it on lap 12. And Ryan Brooks is back into the lead where he started. Again, I must give a massive, massive props to Bracey, who is holding Dan Lovett behind. And, you know, Dan is fighting for a Constructors' World Championship in this race. Or, well, not really fighting it, but fighting to try and keep it alive, as we've got the two leaders now wheel to wheel once more. Ryan and BT really going for it in the middle sector. And was that contact between the two of them? No damage done if there was. Both of them, again, around the same sort of ERS. But while Ryan harvests, BT does not. And now, to the main straight, we go once more. Again, fairly similar ERS. Ryan with about 10% more. And looking to break the toe. Again, you can only move once per the Formula 1 regulations. That looks like moving twice to me. But here goes BT towards the inside. Crucially, he was behind at the detection point, I believe. And he was. So we'll get the DRS to try and run away with it again. Deploys the overtake, as does Ryan. Ryan will have the slipstream and will look to try and retake the lead into turn 4 much, much later on the brakes. Round the outside he tries to go. BT's having absolutely none of that. And BT does manage to reclaim the lead. While all of that was going on, Dan Lovett has managed to get past Bracey back up into 4th. And like I was going to say before we saw that lead battle, Dan Lovett is fighting to keep his Constructors' World Championship hopes alive tonight. So Bracey, for 12 laps, doing an incredible job to hold Dan behind. But on those medium tyres, the softs slowly starting to die out now as we see Josh on the mediums get past Gav, who's on the softs. It does look like it's the end of the life of those soft compound tyres. Although Sab is doing a very good job to stay within that 3-second duct of Ryan Brooks. And can you imagine if we had an Alpine 1-2 to settle the Constructors' World Championship fight? 5 tenths between the leaders then, and ever coming down. BT with much more battery than Ryan, but the gap is very, very close, and almost too close, as again we ride on board with the Williams now then, and towards turn 1 we go, and BT is really draining while Ryan is not. They're similar on ERS. Ryan lifting and coasting to try and get as much battery in that Williams battery pack as he can. As now towards turn 4 we go. Bracey has managed to get his way back past Dan, and BT does manage to re-hold the lead. Dan is now coming at Bracey. Bracey is harvesting the battery. Dan isn't close enough though, and Bracey does retake P4. So an incredible job by the V-Carb man as we see Meldrum and Anarchy battling for 8th place. I believe Sean was into the pits quite near the start, wasn't he? Yes, he was. So he is quite a way off the pack, but obviously due to that early pit stop, that is why. McKellar pitted and has got past Paul Codd. And we'll be hoping that Paul doesn't go for a move into turn 4. And Paul maybe thought about it there, but going a little bit wide, and McKellar does make that move stick. Ryan and BT still very, very close to each other. Very, very close on battery percentage. And that is the thing with these two drivers, is they are oh so close to each other, as another bollard goes flying across the track then. Will we catch that on board with Bracey? No, it's already been removed. Good job to the marshals on the F125 game. But now we look to turn 1 again. Ryan Brooks versus BT. Can the Williams man try and make his way through on the Alpine? These two are fighting for the Constructors' World Championship. Who is going to come out on top? BT is forced to take a tighter line because Ryan did have a nose down the inside. And now they are really fighting it out. To turn 4 we go. BT and Ryan. Ryan does get momentarily ahead. There is contact between the two of them, and BT, stark showing of defence in the Alpine, somehow manages to hold Ryan behind. And look at that. They're on the exact same amount of battery. They are literally carbon copies of each other, but BT driving incredibly well to keep Ryan behind. Beautiful stuff from the pair of them. Contact-free racing, or relatively contact-free racing. And BT does hold on to the lead, although here does come Ryan. Maybe looking for a move in an unorthodox place. Doesn't manage to get it. And now look who the ERS battery game swings to. CRBT. Ryan also on reduced harvesting. BT is not, and he will continue to get energy in that battery pack. Nearly a full battery, and may well be a full battery. By the time we get to the main straight, it will be. And Ryan may be looking for a move into turn one. Was that maybe a bit of DRS baiting going on from BT? Who will have the DRS? It is BT. So I do believe that BT DRS baited him. And there you go then, to the inside. A very easy move with the battery in the DRS. And BT, after losing the lead at the corner, I believe strategically, makes his way back up into the lead. A little bit of a snap for the Alpine driver, but plenty of battery on board with the Enstone driver team. Although Ryan is going for a massive dive bomb down the inside, and now they are wheel to wheel. And after being outsmarted at the final corner, Ryan has caught BT absolutely napping. Threw it down the inside, did Ryan, and back up into the lead he goes. Incredible, incredible action between the top two. You cannot find a winner out of this one. Lap 16 of 57, Ryan leads from BT. In all of that, we saw Bracey come into the pits for a set of the medium tyres, and you would have to assume that he is two-stopping. BT manages to get past Ryan, but only for a moment, as he went a little bit too deep there, and Ryan simply switch-backed him. And BT will have to try and reclaim that lead elsewhere. That promotes Dan Lovett up to 4th with BT's pit stop. And will we now see Dan come into the pits to react to that? Sab picks up a 3-second penalty, so he is now on level pegging with the two leaders and will not be gaining because of those penalties. And Sab, you would have to assume, into the pits this lap, and is. So you would imagine within a lap or two, you will see BT and Ryan react to that pit stop from Sab. BT retaking the lead for now. Josh is going to have a go on Dan Lovett into turn one. Is there space for the Aston Martin driver? There's a little bit of contact between side pod and front wing, but nothing major. But there is more contact there as Josh is forced onto the curb. DRS for the Aston Martin. No DRS for the Williams driver. Round the outside, he tries to hold it as BT picks up another penalty. Josh makes his way up into the podium places as Sab, we obviously saw, into the pits. But crucial for this race now, BT on 6 seconds of penalties, Ryan only on 3. Very, very close between our top two. Dan Lovett is looking to regain the position on the Aston Martin. Currently sat in an Aston Martin sandwich on track. As we've got a yellow flag, and that's Sean, who is round out on the exit of, I believe, turn 7 or 8 there. No damage done to the V-car, but that is going to harm his race. As now to the final corner again, we go with BT and Ryan. And these positions are changing every lap. And the interesting thing now is to see, will Sab be able to undercut? Because they have stayed out 2 laps after Sab's pit stop. And there's contact there, I'm sure of it, between BT and Ryan. And they are now wheel to wheel as we head towards turn 4. It's BT who will have the DRS. Ryan defending for all his might and pushing BT towards the inside of the track. But BT does manage to get the move done. Ryan will look for the switchback, but nothing doing. And BT does retake the lead. Gavboy sets the fastest lap of the race with a 32.9 on that fresh set of soft compound tyres. But Dan Lovett in 4th, not able to get back past Josh. Ryan not able to get BT. BT, they are just changing hands for the lead every single lap. You could not call a winner thus far. Lap 18 of 57 in this Bahrain Grand Prix, and they are very, very close to each other. The only difference is that BT is on 6 seconds, Ryan on 3. So net, Ryan has a 3-second lead. However, that could all change very, very quickly. And there is still, 3/4 left of this race. Now, I would like to invite you guys, you do see on the screen the follower goal. We are currently on 60 followers. Our goal is to reach 100. If you are interested in helping us, if you're enjoying the action on your screen, hell, even if you're enjoying the commentary and you just like listening to me, drop a follow down below. We are bringing you action 6 days a week, starting the 10th of September, 7 days a week. So you need to be following this channel. This is the only place that you will see NRRL races live here on Twitch. NRRL Race Day. Drop a follow down below. Subscribe on YouTube if you want to see the race highlights. And follow us on TikTok for compilations, best moments, great overtakes, and just everything NRRL. But back to the action then. Lap 19 of 57. And Ryan Brooks chasing down his rival CRBT. And now, if the count were to end at this moment in time, I do believe that Williams would hold on and would take the Constructors' Championship to the final round of the season. However, Sab has pitted, whereas everyone in the top 6 has not. Sab is right behind Gavboy now and will be looking for the overtake as his journey on the undercut continues, does Sab. Will we see either of the leaders into the pits? It's been 3 laps now, or it will be as they cross the line since Sab pitted. So the undercut will only be working more and more. And do any of them come into the pits? No, they're dummying it. And oh, Ryan with a very, very late dive into the pits and picks up a 10-second penalty. I think he was trying to do a somewhat do as he do if you don't sort of thing. If BT pits, you don't. If he doesn't, you do. But a very, very late call. Not enough time to slow down. And Ryan Brooks with a slow stop as well. 10-second time penalty. Luckily for him, isn't going to be undercut by Sab. But Sab is much, much closer. Ryan actually comes out wheel to wheel with Gavboy, who is not going to give up that position easily. And on the cold tyres, if Sab can try and get past Ryan here, who is now wheel to wheel with Gavboy, and this is an important move for Ryan's race. Gavboy goes round the outside and actually holds on to the position. They are still wheel to wheel, and you would assume now the advantage will swing to Ryan, but Gavboy really isn't giving this one up, and they are still wheel to wheel. And Ryan does manage to eventually get the move done, but Gavboy still is not giving up. To turn 8 we go. And he is just going to have to give it up for the time being. But Ryan, now with a 10-second penalty on top of his 3 seconds, that will be 13 seconds in penalties for the Williams man. And suddenly, once again, the power shifts to BT, who you would have to assume will be in this lap. But he isn't. He is going to stay out. Now, one thing I would like to ask, because I'm not 100% sure, is there a rule in NRRL about crossing the pit lane white line? Now, if we go on board with Meldrum, you can see there's a white line coming into the pits. Ryan's dive was extremely late. And there is no doubt, in my mind, that he crossed that line. Will that result in an after-race penalty for the Williams driver? I'm not 100% sure. I'm just throwing that out into the cosmos just in case that is something that happens. Well, enough of that for now then. The top 4 yet to pit. We've got Meldrum, Dan Lovett, Josh and BT, who leads the Grand Prix in his Alpine, vying for the lead this whole race he has been, and is looking for a Grand Prix victory, which somehow, and I remember bringing this up in Hungary, and I'm just going to fact check myself, before I say something stupid, if I look now to the race results, no, never mind. I was going to say BT hadn't won a race. He won Hungary. So BT did get his maiden Grand Prix win. Dan Lovett won the opening round, so it wouldn't be a maiden Grand Prix win for him. Sab won in Spain, so again, wouldn't make a difference for him. BT does stay out for another lap. He will continue on. Lap 22 of 57 now then. The highest placed man in the standings to have not scored a victory, Jim Strav in Ferrari. Not racing tonight. We don't see any Ferraris on the track tonight under the lights. Okay, next man in the championship to have not scored a race victory, Mr. Jabe. Currently sat in P16, in the championship, P5. So he is faring very, very well. We've then got Meldrum, who is in 6th, currently 3rd on track. Obviously has not made his pit stop yet, so he will tumble down the order. But BT looking for a second Grand Prix victory this season. And interestingly enough, we have not had a multiple time race winner. So it'll be interesting to see if BT can break that duct tonight. Now I don't know, I might be lying there, because Ryan might have won the last 2 races. But I haven't been here, and there's nothing on the standings about Ryan Brooks. So, as far as I'm aware, this is the first time Ryan is racing on a Sunday. So we will have to see after the race if that's true. But from what I can see, if Ryan is able to overcome the 13-second penalty and go on to win this Grand Prix, it would be his maiden win on Sundays, which is obviously, it's the big tier for now in NRRL. Once the Super League starts, you would imagine that that is going to be the big one, the big prize in NRRL. But for now, it is the Sunday 100% races. As Josh now comes into the pits, Meldrum is promoted up to 2nd, Ryan is in 3rd, and Gavboy in 4th with Sab, who is going to be really frustrated behind the rear wing of that Red Bull. And BT still yet to pit out in front. You would have to assume that he is going to be undercut here. There is no way that he will hold that position. However, Ryan will be not only on older tyres, he will have that penalty as Ryan, with a lovely executed dive bomb, gets himself up into 2nd place on the road. Meldrum a bit out of his depth here. Obviously 22 lap old medium tyres for him. Been on those tyres the entire Grand Prix thus far, so he really will be struggling. And Gavboy is now looking to compound those issues on track. Does go for a little bit of a late jink out from the rear wing. And Meldrum has gone very, very wide. And that is not only going to allow Gavboy through, but it is going to allow Sab through too. Now, does BT come in this lap? He does not. So BT is really looking to extend this overcut and potentially going for a one-stop, which would be very interesting. I personally didn't think a one-stop would be possible, but BT, maybe after seeing the penalty of Ryan Brooks, maybe he's had this planned all along, looking for the one-stop strategy. We've then got Ryan in 2nd, who is taking, I believe, about half a second out of BT every lap. So really, not too much. Although we now see the gap go down by about half a second through a single corner. So ignore everything that I have just said. The gap is coming down. You would imagine it will come down. BT having been on those tyres the entire Grand Prix. Ryan having been on his for 4 laps now. Gavboy is in 3rd on track on the softs. And Sab will be looking to take that away from him. We've then got DGH in 6th, who is having quite a quiet race, I must admit. Same with Bracey, but they are both doing very well in 5th and 6th, respectively. McKellar, who has been on the hards for 13 laps, looking to make quite the large undercut work here if possible. We've then got Dan Lovett, who obviously pitted. He is in 9th. He's been on those tyres for 2 laps and did get undercut by Josh. Josh is 3.4 seconds ahead, so a great strategy there from the Aston Martin crew, putting Josh a fair way ahead of Dan Lovett. We've got Gavboy, who's in 3rd, pitted 9 laps ago, or 10 laps ago now, for those soft compound tyres. Massively under pressure from Sab though, and Sab is using the battery to try and get past. Jinx out to the left from out of the slipstream and does make his way up as BT does now come into the pit. So Ryan does take over the lead. Sab and Gavboy are now actually battling over 2nd. We've then got Bracey in 4th and BT will come out in 5th. So he's found a nice little gap there, has BT. Gets out in some fresh air. He's well ahead of the Mercedes. He's quite a way behind Bracey and he's weaving to warm up those hard compound tyres. And BT with a massive overcut, a 5 or 6 lap overcut on his rival in this race, Ryan Brooks. And he will be looking to gain that time back. If we look at the gap to the leader, 11 seconds between Ryan and BT. You would imagine that gap will probably keep going up for a little bit, just based on the fact that Ryan is on the mediums and BT is on the hards. So you'd imagine those mediums will still be quicker for a little bit, but then the tides will swing to BT. And if BT is doing a one-stop, which is definitely possible, went to lap 24, or lap 25, sorry, on those mediums, which is near enough half-race distance, it will definitely be doable on those hard tyres. Barring any incident or whatever, BT should be able to execute the one-stop. Gavboy is surely going to be into the pits again, or for his sake, I would have to hope that he will be in the pits again. Ryan Brooks, don't know if he'll be able to take those mediums to the end. He might as well try if he sees fit. Sab, again, you wouldn't expect those mediums to go to the end, but you just never know. Bracey, I would really assume will have to pit again. BT is really the real outlier here. Josh makes his way past DGH and up into 6th as Gavboy and Sab are still battling over 2nd place on track. Great line there from Gav looking to get past, but they are wheel to wheel now as we enter the end of Sector 1 and towards Sector 2. Gav is really fighting hard and is he going to give up the position now? They're still wheel to wheel through Sector 1 and now Sector 2. Still oh so close with each other. And Gav is not giving up that position at all. And Bracey is now really gaining on this battle. And Sab, who was the first to try and undercut out of the top 3, is really being held up. So BT, where he's played it perfectly, he got the gap he needed, came out into a nice open air of traffic where he could have some clean air. Sab has been stuck behind Gav for a lot of laps now, and Bracey is now coming into this battle. So Sab is going to be screaming under that helmet as he tries once more to try and get past that Red Bull. To the main straight we go again. Lap 27 of 57 we are currently on. 8 seconds is Ryan's lead. The gap tumbling down though, and then here comes Sab again then, well ahead by the time we get into turn 1, and Paul Codd has retired. And is that a full course yellow? I don't see the safety car deployed, but I believe it is a VSC. There is Paul's Mercedes on the side of the track. A very weird place to DNF there for the Mercedes driver. And the safety car is deployed then. If we go on board with Dan Lovett, if we look behind us, there you can see the safety car in the background. Now, will we see some drivers into the pits? You would have to imagine someone like Gavboy will take the opportunity. Do we see someone like Ryan or Sab into the pits for a set of the hard compound tyres? Is that Gav going into the back of Sab Gaming there? It is. Gav now has damage. He's gone into the back of Sab under the safety car. Damage for the Red Bull. Will he have to change that front wing? That could have ruined Gavboy's hard work completely. I just caught that there. Not ideal in the slightest for the Red Bull. Damage to his front wing. Now, I am going to stay on board with Ryan here because I am interested to see whether the Williams man will come in to the pits. Comes around the final corner now. Will he get on a set of hards and try and take them to the end of the Grand Prix? It is looking that way, and it is. Ryan into the pits from the lead, and will obviously serve that 10-second penalty. He's got a 10-second gap to Sab, who is also coming into the pits, as is Gavboy, as is Bracey. Beatty will stay out and inevitably take the lead of this race. But the good thing for Ryan is with other people pitting, he's not going to lose many positions, if any at all. As look, everyone is coming into the pits. So I believe Ryan, even with serving that 10-second penalty, will come out in second place. Or no, Sab is going to come out in second place. So it will be an Alpine 1-2 at the restart. But Ryan, serving a 10-second penalty and changing tyres, only loses one position net, which is baffling, honestly, but incredibly lucky for Ryan to get that safety car when it did. BT will take the lead. Sab and Ryan will have the fresher tyres by about 3 laps, as will Bracey, Gav, DGH, Josh. But if we now look to the penalties, yes, BT is on 6 seconds, and now again the pendulum swings, because Sab, Ryan and Bracey only have 3, Gav doesn't have any, and BT's on 6. So if those drivers can stay penalty free, that is really going to harm BT's race. Now, we get under the safety car, so we slow down now. Behind Bernd Mailander in the Aston Martin safety car. A beautiful car is the safety car, I must admit. That lovely dark forest green on the Aston Martin. Beautiful stuff. And we will keep the penalties enabled for a little bit, just so everyone can see what is going on. 3 seconds, the difference in penalties between BT, Sab and Ryan. BT will obviously have the advantage of track position, but BT will be under threat from Sab and Ryan. Now, the question is, and it's very difficult to ask this one, Alpine are obviously fighting for the Constructors' Championship. And as things stand, if the race were to end right now, Alpine would be your Constructors' World Champions. But does Sab play the team game of holding up Ryan to get BT that 3-second gap? Surely not, because Sab and BT are in their own championship fight. Sab leads the championship from BT, and there's not too many points in it. I believe it's a 17-point gap. So if you're Sab, surely you are not going to look at that and think, I'm going to play the team game. Surely you are playing for yourself. So it's going to be interesting to see how this final half of the race pans out. Lap 29 of 57. I wouldn't be surprised if the safety car is in this lap, as we've got Meldrum, who will form up at the back of the pack then. And the safety car will have plenty of time to let us know if he is going in. We will see the safety car lights turn off. They aren't off yet. So the safety car will now go in this lap. I was just about to say it won't, but it will be in this lap, and Bernd Mailander will speed off into the distance, and BT will become the de facto safety car. We'll quickly change that screen back to the tyres so you can see the difference in the rubber. Now, when do you go if you're BT? A very, very long main straight here at the Bahrain International Circuit, and you are going to want to keep everyone napping. And has he gone out the final corner? He is not. He is keeping everyone waiting, and now he goes. And has he caught his teammate napping? Just a little bit, but Ryan has got a great safety car restart and is very, very close to the back of Sab Gaming. Is there a move down into turn 1? There isn't. And we've got cars jockeying for position 3 wide there into turn 1. And cars running wide all the while, ghosting in between each other as Mr. Jabe is in the middle of that. He is a lapped car, so he will not affect this. But on board with Josh now, who is looking to gain positions. Bracy and Gavboy are really going for it with each other at the minute. Bracy is having the inside line, and I believe there was contact there between the two drivers, but nothing major. And Bracy does manage to get through on Gavboy up into 4th position. But BT, with a good restart, manages to get through and maintains his lead. Is now P1-2 from Ryan Brooks in the Williams. Then you have Bracy, who is looking to compile some pressure on the long-time race leader. Then you have Gavboy, who was fighting with Bracy. DGH in the Mercedes behind him. From Anarchy, Josh, McKellar, Dan Lovett down in 10th. So the strategy has not worked for him. We've then got Sean in 11th. I have no grip. Meldrum, Mr. Jabe and Stoker, with Paul Codd being the only man to DNF. And huge for this Grand Prix, Ryan Brooks picks up another penalty. So 6 seconds for BT, 3 seconds for Sab, 6 seconds for Ryan. DRS enabled on this lap then, and 2 Alpines lead the way, but are very close to each other. BT, though, managing his battery very, very well. Ryan Brooks is also quite depleted on the battery, as is really everyone besides BT. BT is able to harvest a lot more. Is Ryan able to look for a move on BT's Alpine counterpart? He is not, and will have to stick in 3rd position for the time being. Bracy isn't close enough to try and make a move either. And everyone, obviously, after the safety car restart, very, very close to each other. No moves happening in the top 6, though. All very close. And BT is starting to maybe run away with this a little. I don't believe that Sab will have the DRS. He will not. So absolutely huge for BT there. Sab is going to use his ERS to not only try and stay ahead of Ryan Brooks, but to try and pull away from... Sorry, I'm having a brain moment there. He's trying to pull away from Ryan Brooks, but also get into the DRS again of his teammate BT. And he has done exactly that. But BT is saving that battery for when an attack is launched, whether it be from his teammate or whether it be from Ryan Brooks. But Ryan is very, very close to the back of Sab, and we will ride on board with the Williams looking to gain that position. He is draining the overtake and has a little bit more battery to try and use. To turn 1 we go then. Is there a gap opening up for the Williams driver? Doesn't look like there is, but he is going to go for it. Sticks his nose in there just to let Sab know he's there. And now, here is the real overtaking zone. And here we go then. Ryan does pull wheel to wheel with Sab. The move is done before the overtaking zone really even opens up. And that is Ryan Brooks up into 2nd place. Anarchy has retired in the pit lane, and he is our 2nd retirement today. We see a Sauber in the pits. That is McKellar. But the front 2 with 6-second penalties. BT with nearly a full battery. Pendulum swings the way of Sab at the minute. But like I say, we're barely at half race distance thus far. And this battle is going to ensue all the way to the checkered flag. Lap 32 of 57 of this Bahrain Grand Prix, and BT leads the way. Everyone is very close to each other, but with it being a bit of a DRS train, there's a massive gap between, who is that, Josh Josh and DGH, sorry. And the top 6 are all in a DRS train. It is very hard to try and make a move if you are in this top 6, unless you are Ryan Brooks trying to put the moves on the current leader, CRBT. The Alpine leading for a long time in this race, but so is Ryan. And BT will not have the DRS. He will be using his battery, but he isn't actually using the battery that much. Ryan to the outside. Is there a move going? Just went a little bit too deep. Had to turn out of it, otherwise he was going to make contact with the Alpine. No move there for the Williams driver. He will have to sit behind for at least another half a lap, unless he throws some absolutely outrageous dive bomb into turn 8, which I should hope, for BT's sake, he doesn't. McKellar also comes into the pits and retires from the session, and is our third retiree tonight under the lights. But Ryan is looking to put the moves on BT and is very close to the Alpine now. Pulls to the outside. Round the outside he goes and does make the move stick up into first position. But BT is looking all the while to try and gain that back, and he does have the battery advantage by a country mile. Sab now picks up a 6-second penalty, so now the pendulum swings again. BT does sit behind to get that DRS, and he has the battery to sit behind and then drain the battery to get back up into the lead if need be. Here we go then towards turn 1, and BT does go through and take the lead back from Ryan Brooks. Bracey makes his way up to third past Sab Gaming, so Sab is now falling back. But the interesting thing is, with all the penalties, it's currently Gavboy who is technically leading, who is in 6th position. A lot of these races, I must admit, in NRRL are decided by penalties, and the order does change a lot when the drivers cross the checkered flag. And currently, as things stand, Gavboy would be your winner, and a maiden Grand Prix winner at that. Ryan Brooks managed to get past BT, and the battery is slowly depleting for the Alpine driver, so it is going to become more of a level game. They are level on penalties, so this is all going to come down to driver skill, and both of these have talent in abundance. Is BT looking for the move? He is not. And now the battery, like I say, is relatively the same. Bracey, who, like I said in qualifying, I don't believe I've ever commentated in a race before, currently sat in the podium places, only 3 seconds of penalties. He will be looking to get a first maiden win as well. And like I say, with the championship standings that I've been provided, I do believe Ryan is looking for a maiden win as well. So that leaves 3 drivers in the top 6 who are all within a shout of this race victory, looking for maiden Grand Prix wins. Those being Ryan Brooks, Bracey and Gavboy. So could we have a first time winner under the lights in the penultimate round of the season? BT retakes the lead from Ryan then, and has used up all of his battery. Ryan has a little bit more, but is satisfied to let BT hold that lead for the time being. Bracey is just waiting in the wings, probably praying for some sort of crash or some ungodly thing to happen to the two in front so he can swoop in and take the prize. We've then got Sab, who is in 4th place, 6 seconds of penalty for the Alpine man. We've then got Gavboy, who is in 5th, the only man out on track to not have a penalty. We will quickly run through the penalties. So it is BT, Ryan, Sab, DGH, who have 6 seconds of penalties. Bracey, Dan Lovett, Josh, I Have No Grip, and Stoker on 3 seconds of penalties. We then have Mr. Jabe on 12, Sean on 21, and Meldrum on 24 seconds. Gavboy, the only man not to get a penalty. And as I am talking about that, you can probably hear me smiling, because a huge moment in this race again, BT picks up another penalty. 9 seconds now for the lead Alpine driver. Only 6 seconds for Ryan and Sab. 3 seconds for Bracey. None for Gavboy. And that is really going to hurt the Alpine. Now, as things stand, obviously, I do believe Alpine will be taking the Constructors' Championship tonight. Ryan and BT really battling it out here on lap 36. Mr. Jabe comes into the pits and retires and is our 4th retiree of the night, unfortunately. The lone... Oh, no, I was going to say lone Aston Martin, but Josh is in the Aston Martin with him. Mr. Jabe, one of the men who has not won a Grand Prix yet, and it will not be tonight, unfortunately, for the Aston Martin driver. A very difficult race for him, but he will be back next week for the finale. Ryan Brooks again retakes the lead, and admittedly, I'm not too interested in this battle currently, because this is what's going to happen in this sort of Grand Prix. It's going to be all change all at the front, pretty much every corner of the race. When it really matters is that penultimate and final lap. Who's going to be in front for the DRS? Who's going to be behind and is going to be dragging them along? How are the penalties going to stack up? You just don't know until the end of the Grand Prix. So a lot of this is just trading position, and that is exactly what they're doing once again. On lap 37, BT does retake the lead of the Grand Prix, and Bracey, like I say, on I believe his first outing in NRRL's Sunday 100% division, currently running in the podium places. We saw a shock V-Carb podium earlier in the Dutch Grand Prix in the real F1. Could we be about to see one here tonight under the lights in Bahrain in NRRL? Lovely shot of the V-Carb here, somewhat on board with the man wearing Roscoe as his helmet. I must say, quite a good helmet. I'm a fan of that one. Could we see another shock V-Carb podium? I am just going to quickly check the standings, so bear with me. And I am going to see if Bracey has raced before. And again, from what I've been shown, he has not. So another driver not only chasing a maiden Grand Prix win, chasing a maiden podium, and chasing a maiden points finish. "20 laps to go then of this Bahrain Grand Prix, and BT leads from Ryan Brooks. But 9 seconds of penalties for BT is really going to compound his hurt. And again, the man that is currently best placed is Gavboy, currently sat in 5th position in the Red Bull. Not really doing much. He's not putting much pressure on Sab. He's keeping him on his toes. But he will know, surely, that if he stays within the 3-second duct of Bracey, that he will be taking a maiden Grand Prix win. And what a win it would be. And what a night this is, really, under the lights. We could have a maiden Grand Prix winner. We could have Constructors World Champions. As it stands, Alpine are going to be Constructors World Champions, but massive contact between the Williams of Ryan and the Alpine of BT, and that is one way that it might not happen, is if there is more scuffles like that. Bracey is just now going to use the overtake button. Didn't really seem too interested in trying to get involved in that battle. But wow. That got very, very close, and I mean it got more than close. It got very touchy between the two leaders. They've not really had any contact under the lights tonight so far, but on lap 38, the two leaders come together, and that could have been much, much worse than it was. Lap 39 then of this Bahrain Grand Prix. Well over half race distance now. And like I say, always trading position are BT and Ryan Brooks. But now, it's... Oh, and is that Ryan Round? Yes, it is! I was just about to say that if you are in the position of Ryan Brooks or BT, you're going to want to start pulling away because of people like Gavin Bracey that don't have penalties. Sab got caught up in that and I believe had to slow down. So DGH has got past him and into 4th. But Ryan Brooks, who has been trading positions with BT for the lead, near enough this whole race. Wow. Ryan nearly, but I mean, it wasn't a full-on spin, it was a half spin. My word. And that is absolutely huge for the page of this Grand Prix. This is Kevin Baker misses, just making sure he's not sat upstairs racing when he should be hoovering. Good racing, but 27 penalties, Jesus Christ. Well, welcome to the chat, Kevin Baker's misses. Pleasure to have you here. Yes, 27 seconds of penalties. We'll go on board with your man, shall we? And give him a bit of action. He's had a bit of a lonely race so far. I believe he had a spin or two as he just goes off the track there. We'll maybe ride off board and see if we can hide some of those mistakes for you. But we're currently running in 10th places, Meldrum. It's a difficult race for him. He's been picking up penalties left, right and centre, as you can quite clearly see. And there you go. He picks up another one for you. He must know you're watching. But no, it's been a difficult race for Meldrum. He didn't have the best qualifying. Not what he will have wanted to have anyway. But at least he's still in the race. You know, we've got 4 retirees currently in this Grand Prix. He's not running last on track. And at the end of the day, he will be scoring some World Championship points, barring any further incident or crash or anything, as he's all 4 wheels off the track there. But no, like I say, barring any major incident, he will be scoring World Championship points, and that is what counts. In all of that kerfuffle, obviously Bracy and BT are now your 2 leaders. DGH, moved his way up to 3rd place. Gavboy is in 4th and is really in the position now for a maiden Grand Prix win. If you are Bracy, you really want to get past BT and get on with this, because I'm sure now, if my memory serves me correctly, Gavboy will be able to see that everyone else ahead has penalties, and Bracy will be able to see that Gavboy does not have one. So this is where it's going to get dicey. 17 laps left of this Grand Prix, and Bracy and Gavboy, it now comes down to the wire as Ryan Brooks goes down the inside of Sab. That is for position with the time penalties. Moves himself up into 5th and is really going to have to start climbing the leaderboards if he wants to try and break away to win this Grand Prix. His next target, the Red Bull of Gav. And if I am Gav, to be honest, I would just let him through. There is no point in wasting time battling someone with a penalty when you are in position to win your first Grand Prix. Meldrum has been AWOL all day from his misses, setting up his new wheel, and it obviously looks like it's serving him well, currently 10th, with 30 seconds of penalties, so definitely worth the day's effort, I will have had to say, for Meldrum, but I'm sure he will get used to the new wheel quickly, and will be back up at the front. Like I say, in qualifying, has had massive turns of pace, took back-to-back pole positions towards the start of the season. Back towards the front battle we go, and this really is falling into Gavboy's hands. He's just got to hope that he can keep it within the white lines and not get himself a time penalty, because if he does, it then really falls into the hands of Bracy. DGH picks up another time penalty, and that will only compound his issues as he is now racing for position with BT. BT really does not have much ERS left. Bracy doesn't have any at all, neither does DGH. And here we go then with Ryan and Gavboy. Gavboy has fallen out of the DRS of DGH. So if I'm Gav, again, it is important really to let Ryan past and let him drag you along with the DRS. Ryan does go down the inside and will get the DRS for good measure. And Gav, you've just got to try and stay out of any incident. Try not to get forced off the track. Try not to get any time penalties, and just let Ryan drag you through the grid and pray that you can stay within that 3-second gap. As my controller has disconnected, I do apologise, ladies and gentlemen. We will get that plugged in immediately for you, and we will return to the racing action. But like I say, with Gavboy, he has just got to try and make sure that he can stay in that 3 seconds. Lap 42 of 57 here, and Ryan Brooks is a man on a charge, and Gavboy is slowly starting to fall off. If we quickly take a look at the tyres, everyone is on the same tyre wear, and is Gav just falling out of the DRS? He is, unfortunately, for the Red Bull driver, chasing a maiden win, but without DRS it is going to be very, very difficult for him to try and gain up now, though, as we will look at the gap to leader. 3.9 is the gap. That's not what we're looking at. We are looking at the gap to Bracy, because Bracy is the man with the least penalties in the top 4. 3 seconds of time penalties for Bracy. And if Gavboy falls any more back now, this is really going to fall into the hands of the V-Carb man. And like I keep saying, Isaac Hadjar, shock podium in the Dutch Grand Prix today. Could we have a shock V-Carb winner in NRRL? He has never stood on the podium before. Like I say, the standings are telling me that he's never even raced before. So he's looking for a maiden Grand Prix win in his first race. And to be completely honest with you, I couldn't tell you a time that's ever happened in NRRL or in real life F1. I don't believe anyone has ever just won on their debut. So what an effort it would be from Bracy if he were able to win this race. Gavboy is starting to fall back now off the back of Ryan Brooks and into the hands and jaws of Sab Gaming. And to be honest, again, if I'm Gav, I'm letting Sab go, and I'm just praying that he's got the pace to try and gain up to these guys and use the DRS to drag me along, because Gav has obviously somewhere taken too much life out of those tyres, and he is struggling. The front 4 really are starting to pull away with this as we reach the climax of this Bahrain Grand Prix. DGH currently sat in 3rd. Again, another man that I haven't seen in the standings, nor have I commentated over before. And he is racing well, currently in the podium positions on track. Ryan Brooks, though, heartbreak for the Williams man, jostling for the lead nearly every corner with CRBT, now fighting for 4th place on track, trying to make his way up to the podium places. But I do believe now this is starting to fall into the hands of Bracy. 7.5 tenths is the gap to the leader, and Gavboy is starting to fall back, not only into the jaws of Sab, but he is falling out of that duct he needs towards Bracy to try and stay within contention. Lap 44 of 57, and the pendulum, like I always say, keeps swinging. And at the moment, the momentum is with the V-Carb driver of Bracy. A great effort in qualifying, as we will take a look now at the position changes. We've got Bracy, who is up 4 positions. Our big gainer, DGH, who is up 12 positions. Ryan down 3, of course, from pole position. Sab is down 2 places. We've got Sean, who is down 7. P3, this man was on the grid with an incredible lap in qualifying, but the race just not has come together for him, as now we've got Ryan, who is going past DGH and does take 3rd place, makes that move stick, and Ryan does move his Williams up another position. We will now look again back towards the penalties. 6 seconds for Ryan, 9 seconds for BT. So BT really is going to fall back. But for Alpine, this would be enough to secure the Constructors' World Championship. I keep mentioning it, and I keep saying it over and over, but it is looking like a day where a championship will be sealed. Sab will not be winning the Drivers' Championship tonight, as things stand, as BT is beating him by quite some margin, and that will make things very interesting as we head into the final round in Miami a week from today. And I do encourage you, once again, please do drop a follow down below if you are new. Next week, Sunday, 7:15 p.m, we are live for the season finale. And while the Constructors' Championship, looking like it may be decided tonight, the Drivers' Championship, if things stay as they are, will be very, very close in the Miami heat. Ryan is now looking for a move on Bracy, and Bracy, I think, is doing the smart thing there, just letting Ryan go. He is not fighting with Ryan, nor is he really fighting with BT. Both of them have extra penalties, and I can't see Bracy losing 3 seconds to Ryan, nor can I see him losing 6 seconds to BT. So he is doing everything he needs to try and take this race victory. Kevin, thank you very much for subscribing to the channel. It is much, much appreciated. I know you do sometimes race here in NRRL, but your subscription is incredibly valued. Thank you very, very much, my friend. It is much, much appreciated from everyone here at NRRL. And I'm sure the drivers will be willed on by your support to try and give you a cracking end to this Bahrain Grand Prix. With Bracy now then, he is under pressure from DGH. But look at this battle between Gavboy and Sab. It was looking oh so good for Gavboy to try and take a maiden Grand Prix victory. But it has just fallen away from him. The tyres evidently taking too much wear. And he is now falling back. It hurts to see, if I'm honest. You know, as a commentator, you don't want to be biased. But Gavboy working so hard to improve his pace in that Red Bull. No penalties. Easily the cleanest driver on track in terms of track limit violations. And well, it is sad to see. Bracy loses the position to DGH. I highly doubt he will care at all, because he will surely know that he is in contention for the race victory. And about 10 laps ago, this is what we were seeing. We're seeing it once again. BT and Ryan Brooks battling away for the lead, and it is just what you love to see under the lights in Bahrain. Two cars absolutely going for it. And interestingly enough now, Ryan picks up another time penalty. So the top three all on 9 seconds of penalties. Bracy only on 3 seconds. He would have to lose 6 seconds in the last 10 laps to lose this lead. But interestingly enough, it makes it all even between the top three. So they really are now vying for position. So this battle, as feisty as it is now, it is only going to get feistier as BT now looks to the outside of Ryan. I believe there was contact there, and BT does run a little bit wide. That might have got him another track limits warning. But Bracy will be looking at this, and at this point of the race, he'll see where he is. He will see the amount of penalties that the other drivers has got, and he will start smiling in that helmet as he realises he is on the brink of becoming a Formula 1 race winner. I can't stop saying it enough, but a surprise V-Carb podium in Real F1 today, and we are on course for a surprise V-Carb win here in NRRL, and it is just one of those feel-good moments. It is what you absolutely love to see. A little bit of contact there between Bracy and DGH as DGH went really quite smashing into the curb. No damage done, luckily, for the V-Carb driver. Ryan Brooks and BT still going hell for leather and giving it absolutely everything in their pursuit of each other. Ryan currently sat in second place behind BT. 9 laps to go of this Grand Prix, and they are giving it everything, and this is incredible action to watch up and down the grid. No change between the top two as we go through that DRS zone. Sean picks up another penalties, and look at the time penalties for Sean and Meldrum. It's like they're having their own personal battle of who can get the most penalties. 36 seconds for Meldrum, 24 seconds for Sean. A little bit of a wobble there for DGH. And look at this, the Mercedes driver Big contact, and there is damage for the Mercedes as he looked to go around the outside and try and take the lead for the first time in this race. Big damage for the Mercedes, and this is going to be crucial to this race, because is he going to hold up anyone? Surely, if you are people like Bracy Beatty, you are really going to have to hope that you are not going to be fighting the Mercedes for much longer. He will surely fall off of this battle now. Very, very close. They were almost 3 abreast. I believe they were at one point. Beatty going very wide there through the gravel. And look, here comes DGH on Bracy. And this is going to compound the V-Carb's issues. There's a head contact between the two leaders. And look at that then. The Mercedes puts himself between the V-Carb and the two leaders. And there's massive contact. And nearly round goes DGH. Bracy had to slam on the brakes, but no damage done in terms of time lost. But a gap big enough now for Beatty to get himself a second lead. Meldrum has been disqualified from the session, I believe for too many time penalties. What is going on lap 49 of the Bahrain Grand Prix? First there's contact between DGH and Ryan. Massive damage for the Mercedes, and he is now falling back off of the lead trio. We then had contact between the two leaders. Stamping on the brakes was Bracy and DGH. DGH trying to save his car. Bracy trying not to go into the back of the Mercedes. Then we have a disqualification for Meldrum for too many penalties. Incredible stuff on lap 49, and it is only going to get more feisty between the top two. Bracy will just want to sit behind this and watch it all unfold, as with 7 laps to go, he is on the brink of a maiden Formula 1 win. But the two leaders, both on the same amount of penalties, are fighting for track position. And if we look at the interval gap now, look at that. Insane stuff. But with the penalties, would you look at this? I believe that is Dan Lovett, who is only 7 seconds behind. Beatty and Ryan are really going to drop down the order here, as is Sab. So maybe the championship constructors-wise won't be decided tonight. There is just no way to tell until we get to the checkered flag. But what I can assure you is this quality of racing will not only continue tonight, but all throughout every tier of NRRL. Like I keep saying, 6 days of racing this week. From the 10th of September, we are racing every single day. So please, if you are new, drop a follow down below if you are interested in this action. This is absolutely impeccable. Karen, thank you very much for the subscription. Exactly like I said to Kevin, your support is incredibly valued from everyone here at NRRL. Welcome to our family, and thank you very, very much for your support. We do really hope you are enjoying the action here tonight under the lights in Bahrain. And what a race it has been. Lap 51 of 57 laps, sorry. And the leaders once again going for it. Beatty and Ryan never giving each other an inch. Off the track there goes Ryan. Big contact between the two of them. And now look who's arriving on the scene once more. Bracy. Again, I always say it. These guys are racers and they want to win on track. And as much as Bracy will be jumping for joy on the podium if things stay as they are, and he wins it via a penalty, he will want to win this on track. And there is massive contact going on between Beatty and Ryan Brooks under the lights here tonight. Incredible stuff. Sab and Gavboy still fighting away. Josh and Dan Lovett are now joining that fight. DGH just dropping back a bit now, obviously with that damage to his Mercedes-Benz. And again, still battling a Beatty and Ryan. I cannot believe what I'm witnessing. This is absolutely incredible. Between the top two and waiting in the wings is the V-Carb man awaiting his maiden Grand Prix victory in his first Grand Prix race. Impeccable stuff. And the story is insane as, oh my word, he nearly goes into the back of Beatty there. Beatty gets another penalty, so maybe the battle at the front will die down now. Bracey with incredible avoiding action to try and get out of the way. We've got Sean, who's round in the middle sector. He manages to keep the car pointing in the right way and no damage done. But I thought the fight might die down now that BT's got 12 seconds of penalties. That it is not, because now Ryan picks up another penalty and gets to 12 seconds. And now the fight ensues again, and there's contact between the leaders. Ryan now has damage, and look who's on the scene. Insane. Lap 52 of 57. Ryan Brooks now with damage went into the side of BT. I see that as a racing incident from my POV. The drivers might have different views, and Bracey is really looking at this, licking his lips. DGH is now brought back into the battle with that contact, as now he will have the same damage as Ryan Brooks. Ryan will still be looking to fight with BT here, as again, they're on the same amount of time penalties. This is for on-track position. Bracey is waiting in the wings, as is DGH. He'll be within the 3-second duct. Josh, Sab and Dan Lovett are all looking at this as well, as is Gavboy. I Have No Grip is looking at this. This is insane stuff. Here, under the lights, the Bahrain Grand Prix. I told you it was a good track for racing. What a race it is producing for us tonight. I cannot believe my eyes. Now, if I'm Bracey, I'm getting involved in this. And that is exactly what he's looking to do. DRS enabled. The ERS also enabled. He pulls out from the slipstream. And here comes Ryan Brooks then on the Alpine of BT. And there's a big, big lock up there at the rear of that Williams car. Is there more contact between the two of them? They managed to keep it clean. Nobody gets DRS between the top two. Bracey will have it. Ryan now to the outside of turn 4. The damage isn't bothering that much, but the understeer is massive. DGH and Bracey are going at it. DGH is trying to influence this end to the Grand Prix. And if something were to happen to Bracey, you would have to assume that it would then be Josh that will inherit the win. I cannot speak. This is absolutely incredible stuff between these drivers here. And again, there's even more contact between Ryan and BT. They are not giving each other an inch in this Grand Prix. And now to the outside goes Ryan again. BT manages to stay ahead. Bracey just needs to try and avoid the efforts of DGH and stick with these two lead cars. I cannot believe what I'm seeing here tonight. Incredible stuff and action all the way through the race, but for the last sort of 20 laps, this has really heated up, as now Ryan takes the lead of the race once again, and somehow this battle is still going to continue. I'm praying until the checkered flag, and I wish we had another 57 laps of this, because this is incredible. Stoker is into the wall and has damage to that McLaren car. He manages to get it going, but you would imagine he will be in the pits for a new front wing, as that is big damage to the McLaren. Bracey and DGH still battling over third place, and this is not ideal for Bracey. This will be putting the nerves onto him, but lap 54 or 57, he is inching closer and closer to that maiden Grand Prix victory. Ryan now picks up another 3-second penalty, so BT now is really getting on with this, and BT is flying away and is nearly out of the second gap needed for DRS. It is just changing all the time, the results in this race. Ryan, now with another penalty, needs to get past BT and get 3 seconds down the road, which seemed absolutely impossible in this Grand Prix, especially with the pace of BT. Sean sets the fastest lap of the race, a 1:30.3. I can't see anyone beating that thus far. Stoker stays out with the damage. He thinks it's just worth it to go to the end of the race. But we're going to ride on board with the V-Carb man, Bracey 1989, looking for his first win. As I've said so many times, DGH is just falling a little bit off this. Josh is now gaining on that battle. Dan Lovett about 1.8 behind. And here we go then to the main straight once more with Ryan and BT. It has been all change at the front all race long. And now with 2 laps to go in this race, or 3 laps to go, sorry, even more action as DGH throws a dive bomb down the inside of Bracey and manages to get past. It is crucial for Bracey to not be stuck behind the Mercedes, but he doesn't have the straight line speed and is going to be stuck there for a while longer as Ryan goes very, very deep and onto the gravel, and that lets Bracey and DGH through. And curveballs are being thrown absolutely everywhere in this Bahrain Grand Prix. Ryan is now back down to 4th, and the amount of time penalties he's got, he is going to lose major positions. It is all change at the front of the grid here. Insanity is what I feel like I'm watching right now. It has been chaos all throughout this Grand Prix, and what a Grand Prix it has been. Ryan is now right on the back, although another massive lock up at the rear for the Williams driver, and Josh is now going to be looking at that with a lot of impotence as he tries and gets by the Williams driver. He will gain that position through penalties, but he will want to get up the road and try and challenge Bracey. Beatty is now 2 seconds clear, so Bracey really is somewhat getting out of this, but obviously 12-second penalty for CR Beatty. That won't matter. Beatty would have to gain 9 seconds if he wants to win this Grand Prix. I can't see that happening as we enter the penultimate lap of this Grand Prix, and it is crucial for Bracey to not have any incidents. Gavboy manages to get past Dan Lovett. All battles here between Josh, Bracey and Ryan Brooks, and Ryan is really going for it with Bracey here on board with the Williams driver, looking to throw it down the inside. This is where he made the mistake 1 lap ago. No similar mistake here, and Bracey does just give up the position. Probably the wiser thing to do. BT is leading, and honestly, it is a drive-deserving race. A drive-deserving race? A win-deserving drive from the Alpine driver. But I believe, as things stand, it will take Alpine to the Constructors' Championship title. I will have to work it out after the race and see what the provisional results are. DGH, with an incredible race, has seen himself shoot up the order. Ryan Brooks has been battling hard all the way, but a few mistakes have cost him today. And Bracey on course for a maiden Grand Prix victory. He was having a very quiet race until about lap 30 odd, and then it sprung alive for him as BT now rounds the final corner to begin the final lap of this incredible Bahrain Grand Prix, and the Alpine leads as he has done for so long. He executed the one stop and it worked absolutely beautifully, but now as Josh gets past Bracey, still battling for position on track. Now the interesting thing is, if Dan Lovett can try and get involved in this, he is 2 seconds behind. But if Dan Lovett were to overtake Bracey, it would then move into Dan Lovett's favour. So it is not over yet. But for Beatty, who is going to win this race on track, he has driven absolutely perfectly. There's been bits of contact here and there, and you could say that was his fault or others' fault or whatever. But what a Grand Prix that this has been. And what an advert for NRRL. As we now, this is the penultimate round of the season. We head to Miami in a week's time to settle the Drivers' Championship. But BT has driven a great race and will gain points on his teammate and championship rival, Stab Gaming. I'm not sure where he'll finish, but he has driven the race of a world champion tonight. DJH as well, massive shout out. But for Bracey, he is going to finish 5th on track as Sean sets the fastest lap of the race. He had a very quiet race until that second safety car, and that's when he was brought into it. We had a shock V-Carb podium today in Formula 1. Well, here's one better for you. A shock V-Carb win. Bracey, in his first Grand Prix in NRRL, wins the Bahrain Grand Prix with an incredible drive to the win. What a result for the V-Carb driver. And the fireworks go off in Bahrain tonight for him. Dan Lovett in second place. A great drive from the Williams driver to not pick up that many penalties. And Dan Lovett doing incredibly well to secure a second place, and that will really bring him into the championship fight come the finale in a week's time. Gavboy picks up third place, and what could have been for Gavboy, but still a great race from him to finish third. Josh finishes fourth. BT does end up in fifth. And with those results, I do believe that I can officially crown Alpine as your NRRL Sunday 100% Division Constructors World Champions. Congratulations to the Wenstone outfit. Incredible stuff from Sab and from BT. The whole season long, they are your Constructors World Champions. What a race it was here tonight. Ryan ends up in 8th, Sab in 7th, and I will have to take a look at the drivers' standings and see where everything stands as Stoker now comes across the line, our last finisher of the night. Absolutely incredible stuff, and a maiden winner in his maiden race. Bracey, take a bow, young man. What a drive. Take a bow. Well, there we are, ladies and gentlemen. That is your order for the Bahrain Grand Prix. An incredible event all throughout, and a brilliant penultimate round to this season. In a week's time, we will see you in Miami for the Miami Grand Prix and the season finale. But wow, it would be hard to top that Bahrain Grand Prix. What an event we have just seen. Incredible stuff all throughout the race. And that is exactly what you want to see. Alpine are crowned Constructors World Champions, I believe. I'll keep my fingers crossed that that is the case, and I hope I haven't just done all that and they're not. But I do believe from what I can see that they are the Constructors World Champions. We have a maiden winner in his maiden race. And overall, what a Grand Prix to have witnessed. Thank you to everyone on Twitch for following. We will be back tomorrow for our 50% division, so please do drop a follow if you are new. Thank you to everyone that followed and subscribed during today's stream. Come back in a week's time for the season finale of NRRL's 100% Sunday tier. Again, thank you to everyone for watching, for following and subscribing, and we will see you tomorrow for our next 50% division. Take care.